Yeah.
You're good.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. This is the Grosse Ile Township Public Service Commission and our meeting to be held September 12th. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
With liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
That's all right, I got your chair.
It's got brakes.
Okay.
Thanks, Lenny.
Call the roll. Kostick here. Schmidtke.
Present, sir.
Danko.
Here.
Biddle.
Here.
Pedestris.
Present.
Nadu.
Here.
And Phil Kennedy is excused for this evening. We have our Township Manager, Derek Thiel, with us, and Wastewater Treatment Plant Operator, Ryan Walsh. So thank you. Next item is approval of tonight's agenda. I'll recommend approval of the agenda tonight.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any additions or deletions? Derek, you have any deletions?
No.
All right, so with that, all in favor of approval of tonight's agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Next item is approval of the minutes from our June 23rd meeting. You've all had a chance to look at the minutes. If there aren't any comments about the minutes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second that.
Are there any comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next, we have approval of the vouchers for the month of July. And as our Township Manager indicated, our report is not up to date because we do not have a Finance Director at the present time. Hopefully that'll be remedied soon, but at any rate, we will, I think the vouchers are old, and should we, I guess we haven't dealt with those before, so we need to approve the vouchers. You've had a chance to look at them. Are there any questions? Can I have a motion for approval?
Moved.
By Nadu, is there support?
Second.
Middle?
Yep. That's fine.
Supported. Are there any questions about the vouchers? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The vouchers are approved. We also have a statement of revenues and expenditures for the 4 months beginning of the year. That was a 4-month statement, and 1/3 of the fiscal year. We would normally receive and file this. If there are no questions, we'll move on. We'll receive and file it. I'll make a motion to receive and file. We'll just do that. Next is the Treasurer's Report. So we have the Treasurer's Report for the last month, or for the month of July. Are there any questions about the Treasurer's Report? I'll make a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report as
I will
submitted.
second that motion.
Schmidtke, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Questions on the Treasurer's Report? And please note, page 2 of the Treasurer's Report has the fund, the balance that was shown, and much of that has been spent now, but it doesn't reflect in the Treasurer's Report for the road improvement program. And we have cash in the bank in our storm drain fund, and fortunately, that renewal was approved of almost $500,000. And that's important as we prepare for next year's budget. All in favor indicating approval of the Treasurer's Report indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The Treasurer's Report is received. So tonight we have a special presentation that the Township Manager and DPS Director has prepared for us. Lists several items, and I think the purpose of this is to reflect on all the things we have going on that the DPS is responsible for. So Derek, you got the floor.
I want this
presentation to kind of be a two-way street. If you guys have comments or questions about some of the different projects we worked on over the past 12 to 18 months and currently are working on, feel free to interrupt and ask because there are still some ongoing projects that we'll go over on the presentation tonight. But as the chairman had mentioned, wanted to take the opportunity to just reflect a little bit on the various projects that we've been working on and continue to work on behalf of the residents, and just kind of bring everybody up to speed as to where we're at with some of these projects, and also reflect on the ones that are completed. So as everybody knows, we did a lot of road work this past summer and are still currently doing road work. So that's the first set of projects I wanted to go over. All of this work was funded through the road maintenance millage and also the millage, road improvement millage that was passed by the voters last year. So we'll touch on a couple of different maintenance projects, but also some of the capital projects that we worked on. The picture before you is a picture of a milling machine. A large portion of the road work that we did this year involved this piece of machinery, and was primarily the process is to take the 3 or 4 inches of surface off the existing road and then put new material down. So the first step in that process is to remove the old, and then the paver comes in afterwards and resurfaces that road. So one of the roads we worked on was South Point, resurfacing from Swan Island to Johnson. So that was right near that bridge, near Swan Island Drive, the bridge that crosses the canal, right past Johnson. So that was one area that was resurfaced. Church Road, resurfaced from Meridian to West River. Under our project list, this was, I think, the first road that they actually resurfaced. I don't know that it was originally on our project list, but it was eventually added, being that the Church Road stretch between Meridian and East River Road was repaved last year. This completed the resurfacing of that entire stretch. We also did the resurfacing, or the new surface of portions of the gravel roads that intersect Church. So we went back a certain distance to make sure that some of that gravel didn't come onto Church Road when we did that project. And this was full width, so we tried to extend as much as we could the road width where it was possible. So we actually got a little bit wider of a road than what was there previously. So Church Road, Meridian to West River Road. West River Road, starting from Church and going to Meridian. So when I say Meridian, I mean around the bend at the north end of West River. This was a mill and fill as well. We had also did some drainage work on that stretch of road, so we already had new surfaces in those areas, so that saved us a little bit not having to redo those when we did this stretch. But this is obviously one of the worst sections of road that we had within the community, and I think the residents and that live on this stretch, but also the residents in general, were very relieved with the work that was done here, and took care of a lot of issues that were long-standing in the stretch. So from Grow Road all the way down to the north end of West River Road, all of that road is in pretty good shape now. So you can drive from one end of the island to the other end of the island on West River Road, and for the most part drive on newer surfaces. Horse Mill, this was a 2-inch mill and fill, so it was a little bit less of a depth. But if you recall, the drivability of that road wasn't great. There was a lot of washboarding, a lot of bumpiness to it. So we took that surface level off and replaced the 2 inches on the top. And that's a very nice, now drivable surface all the way from Meridian, all the way down to Park Lane. So that was, I think, welcome relief for those that travel that road. We were able to realize some savings as we went through the project. We had less full depth replacement than we thought was necessary and was built into the budget. So when it came time to closing the project out, we had some capital that was available that was part of the bid, and we had money budgeted but wasn't used. So what we did is we appropriated those dollars that weren't used under the budget that we had established for that road work, and added in Canal, and also HCL Jackson Drive, which is off a canal. Those roads weren't in horrible shape, but they would have required a substantial amount of crack and joint sealing, which we could have spent probably close to $150,000 crack sealing those stretches, and I think we spent about $350,000 resurfacing those stretches. So rather than spend that money to crack and joint seal, we just went ahead and put that towards a resurfacing. So that was a nice addition that wasn't originally planned, but with those additional monies and the favorable bids that we received, we wanted to optimize those good dollar figures we got and added those projects on with the money that we had already budgeted for. And that's, once again, HCL Jackson Drive was the other, from canal to canal. So that was kind of, it comes off a canal and then it wraps back around a canal. So that work was done as part of the project list that wasn't originally anticipated.
What did they do, rotomill it?
They rotomilled it. Yep, that's actually an overlay.
Yeah, it's
So-
a concrete road, and the county came in when the people were complaining about it being so bad with the concrete.
Right.
And they put that 2 inches of asphalt on top of the concrete
Yep.
many years ago.
And it lasted quite a long period of time.
It did.
So we just went right back down to concrete and then resurfaced the 2 inches that was there. So we're hopeful that, that lasts as long as the original 2 inches lasted. So the concrete didn't look too horrible underneath. A lot of times when you have an overlay like that, you'll get the reflection of the cracking or the joints below it. But with it being a concrete overlay, we should probably see pretty good longevity out of that. And not a whole lot of wet surfaces underneath there too, so it wasn't much in the way of undermining of the asphalt surface through moisture, so I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. East River Road, Groseal Parkway to Manchester. So this was another stretch of road that we had planned on doing as part of the road project. There was some question about the shoulder here and why that wasn't redone. BPAC has authorized the chip sealing company to come back and fog that, so at least it puts it into a similar look to what the resurfaced road is, and also maintains its longevity. So that will be done hopefully yet this fall with the chip sealing contractor. But I believe this was 3.5 or 4 inches that they went down on this stretch of road. East River south of Grow, so this is Grow Road all the way to the Meso Island Bridge was resurfaced, and I believe this is a 4 inch as well. That turned out really well. Nice road, nice stretch of road now. If you recall, it was in pretty poor condition overall. A lot of cracking, a lot of alligatoring. So with the 4 inches, we should see pretty good longevity out of that stretch of road. Bellevue, East River to Meridian, was another stretch of road that was planned as part of our road project. Initially, the road appeared to be in good shape as far as its resurfacing, but we did, once we got some moisture on the ground, realize that there were a couple of areas where we had some ponding. So we do have some punch list items, some work that still has to occur on Bellevue to facilitate some drainage. What we ran into was Bellevue has a lot of intersecting driveways that have different elevations. So as the contractor came and resurfaced the road, they tried to modify the elevations to meet the driveway intersection heights. So what you ended up with was a road that kind of went like this a little bit because they were trying to make those driveways match into the existing pavement. So that's where some of the ponding is coming from. And also we have a lot of built up shoulder on that road. So the contractor's going to come back and do some shaving of the elevated shoulder in areas where the water was getting trapped on the road because it didn't have the ability to flow off. So that's where some of that ponding came from. We have a couple of minor areas where there's some problems with the slope with that driveway issue. They're going to come back and put a hot pad on that and actually reshape the asphalt in those areas. And that's supposed to actually happen this week or the beginning of next. and the drainage work on some of the elevated shoulders has actually already started. So there are some punch list items on Bellevue. That project on that stretch or that roadway is not complete yet. So.
What did they do around the manholes that were so, they were so sunk when you go down there, boom?
On Bellevue,
Yeah.
well, you'll notice that they kind of pitched it down a little bit to them. So they tried to make it flush as they could.
Because I know that the sewer separation project, when they put that in, they paved Bellevue.
Uh-huh.
And then they kind of settled around the manholes,
Right.
some of them.
Yeah.
It was
So we didn't raise the manholes, we didn't change the elevation of the rims or anything like that, but they kind of feathered it in the best that they could. They did pave back on some of the numbered streets over there to keep the gravel off, and we were pooling a decent amount of water there, so they've got to roto-mill some of those back and readdress the crown in some of those areas. So there is still some work that has to happen on the numbered streets. 3rd Street was another road that was added to the list. So you had Canal and HCL Jackson and 3rd that were added with the additional money we had left over from the lack of the full depth replacement that was necessary. So you'll see that 3rd Street was a full repaving, mill and fill, up to the Centennial Farm. And that was a curb and gutter, but it was just in kind of poor shape. But it was a good candidate for that. With it being curb and gutter, we got a pretty good road, and everything's confined with the curb and gutter. So it was a good candidate for that. So that was an additional road that I don't know that's on this presentation, but it was part of the additional work that we did. We're still currently working on Park Lane. There was a substantial amount of drainage work that had to be done out there, just turning it from a dirt road into a paved road. A lot of culvert work, a lot of storm structure work, a lot of grading and pitching that needed to happen. They were supposed to have started doing the final grade on the road surface last Thursday and Friday. I didn't make it down there on Monday or Tuesday to see if that's complete yet or not, but the paving of that should be happening here fairly shortly. But a lot of the delay has been because of the grading and the drainage work that had to happen there. So that'll all be a new surface. They've actually got to take a decent amount of the existing road off and put some stone back. So the final grade work that has to happen there is going to be pretty substantial, so that might take some time to do that. But if you have an opportunity to drive down there, you'll see when you drive that stretch, all the drainage work that had to happen for that project. It was pretty substantial. We did do a variety of intersections as well. West River Road ramp was one of them. If you recall, we did some drainage work. This intersection here used to pool a lot of water. We installed a new storm drain here and a new storm outlet going underneath the road. So there was a trench that was cut there and was backfilled with cold patch. So we wanted to make sure that this intersection got repaved in order to clean that up, and that turned out pretty well. Additional intersections, South Point and Grow Road and East River, Bellevue and Meridian, and Church and West River. So there were 4 additional intersections that were completed. We also did some work by the wastewater treatment plant on repaving that stretch, and then also some work at the Church Road and West River Road intersection when we did that work. So the total contract cost for all that was about $2.9 million. And we probably won't realize that full contract because included in there is a fair amount of contingency, but we'll go over that budget later on in the presentation. So just keep that in mind. With our road millage funds and also with some of our road maintenance funds, we did a couple of different projects this year. First one being chip sealing that came out of our road millage. Crack and joint sealing and dust control came out of our road maintenance account. So we'll go over that really quickly here. Chip seal, East River Road, Manchester to Grow. So that's over here on the east side. Chip seal, South Point, Grow to Chatham. So we chip sealed a portion of the road and we repaved a portion of the road. So that was kind of a combination project. And then we're looking at adding, hopefully yet this fall, East River farther south between Meso Island Bridge and Hickory Island, Dallas Court or Dallas Circle, and then Bridge Road from Meridian to would be Park Lane, right? Park Lane. Yep. So that is planned to occur yet in September here. As far as crack sealing, we did a variety of different roads based upon their candidacy for crack sealing. They were all asphalt roads. We didn't pave or do any crack sealing on any concrete roads. And this is a very cost-effective process. I think we spent about $60,000 or $65,000. It was a competitive bid. We worked with a variety of different neighboring communities. Allen Park, Lincoln Park, I believe was part of it. Gibraltar, Riverview. We all competitively bid together the package of crack sealing that we put out to get the best price, because my contract here in Gibraltar is $60,000. Gibraltar in Grosse Ile $60,000. Gibraltar might be $50,000. Riverview's $100,000, so on and so forth. And individually, we can't leverage that footage to try to get the best price, but collaboratively we can. So that's what we did. So we spent right around $65,000, and that got us ferry, thoroughfare, and that's thoroughfare south of Church, Island Drive, Highland, and then Meridian north of, it's actually north of Bridge Road. So it's as you go north. And then in the Island Drive area, especially the Island Drive area, there's a lot of side roads in there. And we did all of the side roads. It wasn't just Island Drive. It was actually a lot of the subdivisions in that area. So we were able to touch a lot of different areas. We also did Park Lane between actually just south of the northern intersection of Meridian and Park Lane. So we moved south down towards Bridge. So that's that whole triangle point at the north end of the island we pretty much did. So, and this is something that if the communities are going to competitively bid it next year, something we should definitely take advantage of, because it really does prolong the life of these roads. And a chip seal following that is actually a really good 1-2 punch for the preservation of those roads. So just keep that in mind. We do have ongoing road work. I did speak about Bellevue, and we have a couple other punch list items that still have to be completed. Striping is supposed to occur next week in the intersections, or at the intersections that weren't already striped. And then some of the correction of the drainage issues on Bellevue. And there's still some restoration work with shoulder work and stuff that needs to happen. That's probably about 50% complete so far with the contractor. Concrete work, we've already done a fair amount on Grays Drive, Cadillac Circle, Rivard Court, Country Club Lane, Calm Meadow Court. They're working, or they will be working here shortly, on Cadillac Circle, Cadillac Court they're going to be working on. There's some patchwork on Chatham, and then we'll move over to potentially like Park Lane, but south of Macomb Street. But we've got a project list, a priority list, and we're going to play it out to see how much money we have. We've probably spent, with the work that we've done, especially in like Grays Drive and Cadillac Circle, Rivard Court, and then these two other roads here, probably right around about $500,000 of the $1 million that was budgeted for concrete work. So, we'll obviously expend the entirety of the budget based upon the unit prices that we have. We'll see how far that gets us, and then reevaluate after that.
Well, Derek, that's the first time you haven't said anything about Manchester.
Well, there was some.
Most every year it's Manchester,
right. Yeah, and I know that one of the priorities of the commission was to try to spread the money, if we could, across the community. We prioritized Grays Drive because of the school route, and it's a major, travel path for individuals and, team sports and things of that sort. But we're trying to get to a variety of different places because this is a community millage. We want to try to make sure that the benefit is realized community-wide. Whether you live on the road or whether you traverse the road, we want to spread the money across so it hopefully impacts as many people as possible. This picture on the left is Rivard Court. if you get an opportunity to drive down there, you know, in the next day or two, that road looks beautiful. It almost looks like a brand new subdivision road. We did a combination of complete joint or complete pad replacement and also jointing, so that it turned out really well. And then on the right is Gray's Drive, and there's still some more work we have left to do on Gray's Drive. We hope to come back to it. It's just we wanted to be off of that road by the end of August for the school starting, because this road work does really impact the school district and their ability to get around with their busing. So we try to not inconvenience them if at all possible, because they've got schedules they need to keep and we don't want to stand in their way. But these are old pictures. The new pictures aren't included in the slide, but if you want to review that work, feel free to drive those when you get the opportunity. So we do have some remaining road work that we knew that we were going to have to accomplish in subsequent years. One of them being Ferry Road. Because of the reconstruction of the Meridian Road Bridge, we knew that Ferry Road was going to be a detour route, so we didn't put that on our list. But what we did do is we reserved money from the bond, set it aside, and said, okay, we need to make sure that we preserve funds and not spend those funds so we have an available capital to be able to repave that road. So I know that there's talk about Ferry Bridge being redone potentially next year. More than likely it'll probably be the year after. But I don't know, and the chairman and I were talking about this earlier today, I don't know that the reconstruction of the Ferry Road Bridge necessarily precludes us from repaving Ferry Road, because I think that the reason that we didn't do that was because it was a detour route with a ferry or with the Meridian Road Bridge being out. So I would expect that we could do that next year and accomplish that much needed improvement. We talked earlier about chip sealing East River to bridge, or East River to the bridge, so that's remaining work that has to be done hopefully yet this fall. And then in addition to that, Wayne County work. So Wayne County's on the island doing work, Meridian Road Bridge. We're all familiar with that project. They are, it appears to be behind schedule. I was out there today. They have one abutment complete. The other one they're currently working on. In talking with the inspectors, they should have already had that second abutment already poured and be working on the span. So we'll have to see how that plan plays out with the rest of the work that they're supposed to do, the repaving Meridian, which is to follow that bridge replacement. So we'll see.
Derek, before you get into the county work, I'd like to make a comment
Sure.
about all the road work that was done this year. And it's a good report. I'm impressed with all the projects we did. One of the keys to that is, first of all, we've been working on this road stuff for, Lenny, many years, right?
It's been a minute.
So the first thing is thanks to the voters, again. And Derek, thank you for pushing the projects, and you really did push them, and I appreciate that. The scheme was, when we got approval, that we were going to sell the bonds, $6.5 million bond issue. And I know you're tracking the funds, but that's why we were able to do so much this year. And as Derek said, Ferry's a big one, and I think we should proceed next year with it because it's in really bad shape. And if we can get a little more edge widening on that, that'd be great too. So those are a couple comments. You know, a lot of people talk about the roads, and I don't watch Facebook or I'm not on it because you hear negative and positive, a lot of comments. One of the things this is just a reflection of mine. Used to be a guy that was the proprietor at the hardware store on the island. And the last time we had a proposal, which was many years ago, he always walk in and he, in a very positive way, would say, "What the heck are you going to do with the roads?" And I remember showing him, and I asked him to advertise for us this was 2018, I think.
Yep.
Back then at the hardware store, but everybody goes to the hardware store. So anyway, we made a lot of progress, right?
Sure have.
Yeah.
Really have.
So this is a really good report. One of the keys to this is, and that's why we're going to talk about next year's plan, because the key to getting the good prices, we bid it in February. You got to bid this in the winter when the contractors are all trying to line up their work. And we get the contractor we had, ASI. ASI did a really good job. They were pretty good about it. and we had a good experience there. So we need to be ready with whatever we're going to do and bid it in February, and that's an important thing. That's why I hope next month or in November, final decisions can be made of what we're going to try to do based on budget.
Yeah, and you made a good point earlier. By that time, we should have project closeout on a lot of these different projects, concrete and our asphalt work, and know kind of where we stand with the budget. But I'll go over that kind of briefly here towards the end.
Sure.
Kind of where we're at. So
Yeah, I just wanted to interrupt you with those comments there. And,
Sure. And it's all a team effort, and I want to commend our engineers. I mean,
oh, yes.
very, very confident in their abilities. If we give them a project, they make sure it stays on track and they follow through with it. And they're well trusted, by us to get the job done. So, commend them definitely for the
That's a
work.
good point.
And then also the commission. You guys, have done great with providing guidance with regards to what projects to work on, and also the millage design. Right, that was a joint effort. This project list comes out of those conversations. I didn't put this project list together. That was you guys, and to make sure that it impacted and took care of issues on roads that all of us have recognized are a problem. Right, so and we continue to work with the county. That's what's on the screen here is the bridge. It looks like it probably the Meridian Road Bridge. It's probably out of schedule, but I know they're working diligently to try to.
Before we get to that, I just want one final question on the roads. So you mentioned striping.
Yes.
The striping really sets off the roads, makes them look nice. Ferry Road was striped with the old striping. Church is striped. We're going to do Bellevue, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Are we going to do Canal and HCL Jackson?
I don't think so. I don't think those roads were striped before, so they're more of a residential, less of a major road like a Bellevue is. Although Bellevue is residential, it's more of a one of our longer, straighter roads.
Yeah, I would think I'd like to see Canal striped
I can talk to the engineers about
because
that.
it leads to the other roads, and that's frankly one thing I have. And you're going to finish striping Church then?
Yes, there were a couple of roads that they left out, but when they came through and did some striping earlier, because they knew they had to come back and do Bellevue, some of the intersections aren't striped, so they're going to do all those when they come through and do them.
Very good.
I'll make a note about Canal.
Thank you.
Derek, I got one question.
Sure.
The road weight ratings, East River, Meridian, West River, are those all equal?
I believe they're all Class A roads, but I don't know for sure. I know East River Road is because that's the primary detour route for Meridian Road. I'm not sure on West or any of the others, West Road or West River Road. We didn't change anything with regards to the weight limits with the work that we did. So they will be maintained for whatever they were before we did any of our work. So, because usually the weight is achieved, as I'm sure you know, the depth of the asphalt and the depth of the base, and we didn't do anything other than just take a portion of what was there and replace a portion of what was there. So,
The reason for the question is there's an awful lot of cement trucks and other heavy equipment trucks going down East River Road because Meridian is not operational now. So, my concern is that undermining the longevity of that road. I don't know what's happening on West Road, but, as a result of all the construction that's going on, we're putting an awful lot of, heavy equipment on East River Road that was, may or may not be designed for that.
I know when the county sets up their detours, they review the weight and the design characteristics of the roads that they establish the detour on. And I know they did that when they looked at the Meridian Bridge closure, that East River Road was capable of taking it. That's not to say, though, that additional traffic doesn't, deteriorate at a quicker pace that road. I mean, I think we all saw that on Meridian. When the Parkway Bridge was closed and all the traffic went on Meridian, the rate of degradation was accelerated significantly. So, I mean, it's a good point, but I know the road is designed to carry that weight, It's just, it probably will, beat it up quicker than what it would be if it didn't take all that traffic.
Well, in my old job that Bill had alluded to, I know that truckers were very aware of what roads they could take with, their 18-wheelers on the road. And some of them made comment that they could not go on certain sections of East River, West River, things of that nature, as they were trying to detour around to get to, and this is when we had the county bridge closed and the toll bridge was open. So, they were trying to find the right roads where they wouldn't get ticketed for and stuff
Yep.
like that. So
Yep.
that's, part of the unanswered question that's in the
Right.
back of my mind.
And I know that back when the Free Bridge didn't have it had more liberal weight limits, there were certain roads on Groseal that couldn't support even what could come across that bridge. So, we rely on the county to set those routes based upon what traffic they need to, service and weight limits they need to service. And that's the established route based upon what their ratings are. So, yep.
Okay, any other comments about the roads? So now we're going to talk about the county, and the footnote I would add before you even start is you and the township supervisor seem to have developed a better relationship with the county than we've ever had, and I guess that's starting to show in a positive way. So give your report on the county.
We try to work with the county as much as we can to get them to come to the table with funding for various projects that we have throughout the community. And I think if you probably take a look at the Act 51 equation that allocates the funds for the lane miles that we have within this community, I think we're on the regular end of receiving more than what we would if we were just receiving the Act 51 dollars that are based off that equation. So, they get X number of dollars per lane mile, and the amount of money they spend here is a lot more than that. For example, the Meridian Road Bridge is $8.5 million. That's a pretty significant project. When the estimate is that they receive $2 million or $2.5 million for roads per year on for the lane miles we have here in Groseal Township. So, we're less of a donor community and more of a recipient of those dollars that they receive. So that's a good thing. That means that they understand we have needs and we have work that needs to be done, and they're allocating more than our fair share of those dollars they receive, if you look at it that way. So part of that is Meridian Road Bridge. We also have a variety of other bridges that are in the process of engineering, and that's Elba Island Drive, Ferry Road Bridge, Swan Island, and then Park Lane. But Park Lane is, I think, lower on the list as far as the ability from their standpoint to get that completed. But I know Elba is currently in engineering, and that is slated within the next 12 months to be replaced. Then Ferry, which is currently being engineered, I think is next, and then Swan Island is probably a good 3 to 4 years out, but that's being reviewed right now in engineering. Yeah,
Elba Island is going to be next?
Elba Island is going to be next, yes.
They changed that from
Yes.
some time ago.
And we need to go over that a little bit because there are some implications from a DPS standpoint with that project and some of our utilities. So we'll go into that here a little bit later.
Okay.
But that is the list in order. How Park Lane fits into that, I'm not sure, but I know that they're trying to find alternative sources of funding to fund that replacement, but it still remains closed, obviously. And then we're trying to work with the county to get East River Groseal Parkway to Ferry resurfaced, and then you would have new surface pretty much all the way from the Meso Island Bridge, or newer surface all the way from the Meso Island Bridge all the way down to Horse Mill, if we can get that taken care of, because that's the only remaining stretch that hasn't really been touched. So we're working with them to try to see if we can't get that done as well. Just as a reminder, though, usually the asphalt plants close on November 15th. So the window that's left to do paving is pretty short here. We got, 2 months left. So if this is off schedule, this could potentially be off schedule. So just keep that in mind. This was the original schedule that was passed along to us for the Meridian Road Bridge, and they have Meridian Road resurfacing on the 25th of September and completed by the 30th of October. So the reality of that is not likely. They have one abutment done. They're working on the second abutment, and those were supposed to be completed by August 7th. So they're probably right about a month to a month and a half behind schedule. So you'd have to push all that out. So this becomes very difficult. If you're pushing this out a month and a half, you're getting close to the asphalt plant's closing. So, just keep that in mind, putting you on notice that that might not be a reality this fall. But
And you're working to get Ferry Road intersection opened up.
so right now the intersection is open for school buses the first 2 hours in the morning from, I think, 6:30 to 8:30, and then the last 2 hours in the afternoon, I think, from like 1:30 or 2 o'clock to 3:30. But that intersection, and I wish I had a picture of it, but that's a full reconstruct. So they're taking it all the way down to the dirt, quite a distance from the intersection. So I guess the county, they wanted to rework the alignment of that intersection and then put in some pedestrian controls. So it's more than just a resurfacing or work there. They had to do gas line work. They had to do storm work for the bridge. And now they're doing a reconstruction and alignment of the whole intersection. So that is a pretty substantial project. I was down there tail end of last week, I think last Friday, and they had the whole southbound lane completely ripped out from Ferry back probably a good 300-400 feet. So that's it's a pretty significant project and probably won't be completed until, we're being told, until the bridge is complete. So, another maybe 45 days, I think, if we're lucky. So.
And the only comment I have is, I think I said this to you a couple of months ago too. I understand the resurfacing issue, but there's little traffic now between Island and Ferry. If they opened up that, when they're going to pave that intersection of Ferry, it'd be great. One of the worst sections with uneven pavement is along West Shore, golf course along Meridian.
Right.
If they could go to Island this year when they pave Ferry before the bridge is open, or before November 15th, that'd be great.
Yeah.
To get rid of one bad section there. So just throw that at you.
Right.
So I know you know that.
Yep. So that's the bridge and a couple of Wayne County projects. So this is the Elba Island Bridge, and that's scheduled to be replaced within the next probably 12 months, if not a little bit less than that. The issue is we actually have a water main that runs on the west side of that bridge right next to the abutment. And that water main needs to be replaced when they replace the bridge. So as the utility, we're obligated to comply with the county's request to relocate our utility if it's in conflict with their bridge replacement. So this replacement here is actually under engineering with Rains. We went ahead and gave them the green light to do that because our water main's got to be replaced before they can do the bridge, and we don't want to hold that bridge reconstruction up because it's in pretty poor shape. So that is going to be a cost to the township to do that relocation. Before Ann left, she ran the financials on capital reserves for water main replacement. We've got about $635,000 sitting in the bank to do a replacement out there, which should be more than enough to do that work. But also we've got the Meridian Road water main issue that we need to address as well. So I'm gonna have to work with the treasurer, and we'll have to figure out how that all plays out, with regards to those two water main issues at two bridge locations. But this one needs to be done ASAP to make sure that we don't stand in the way of the scheduling of that bridge replacement. So.
I have a question on that, Derek.
Uh-huh.
Why are they saying we have to replace that water main?
My understanding is it's located within their road right-of-way, within their easement. So if it's in their property and in their utility easement, it's our obligation to move it. So
Okay, because it is a new water main that's
it
in
is.
there.
It's probably, what, early 90s.
Yeah, it's a 12-inch main now.
Right,
Used to be a 6-inch main.
right. So it's,
When they did the sewer separation,
yep.
and then they came along and put new 12-inch main all the way down
Right.
Elba.
Yeah, it's a shame because it's not all that old. But it's going to be in conflict.
This would be laid at the bottom of the canal.
It would be directionally drilled. Yep. So.
No, they did that to us on the Swan Island, the South Point Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
They told us we had to move the water main. It was a brand-new water main at that bridge. We moved it, and it wasn't necessary to move it.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is we spent a lot of times locating it because we wanted to make sure of that. And it's not necessarily an issue, I believe, on this side, but it is on this side. So it kind of curves in or it's on an angle. So it's right in conflict. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to, and we might have to put it in a casing too, Bill, as you asked about that. So that might dictate the installation method too. So, but yeah, it definitely is. So there'll be more to come with regards to that. That'll be a project that's engineered, bid, and then it'll be before you guys to go ahead and recommend to the board for approval. So that's in process. So a little bit about the budget, and this is more about the roads than anything. As was mentioned, we did bond $6.5 million, so that's just a roundabout figure. And then we did a 2022 tax collection before the bond actually came in. So that was about $1 million in that tax collection, bringing our total revenue for road work to about $7.2 million or $7.5 million. For the road package, the original road asphalt package, we're at about $2.276 million, $421,000 in engineering, and $227,000 in contingency, bringing that total asphalt package to about $2.9 million. Now, this contingency here, we didn't really touch. The additional work that we added was part of this original package. So we had road X, Y, Z, ancillary expenses such as undercutting that was budgeted for at a certain quantity that was never realized. So those additional roads that were added, Canal and HCL, were all part of this $2.276 million. That contingency didn't play into that. So just keep that in mind as we take a look at the bottom line. That money there should be available for next year's projects because it wasn't used as part of this year's project. The concrete road package was $989,000, so about $1 million. Engineering cost, and then contingency, which once again, that project's not closed out yet, so we're not sure if that contingency will play in, but we're not anticipating that it will because this work's pretty straightforward. It's on the surface. We know what we're getting into. There's rarely any unforeseen circumstances that arise when you're doing a concrete pad replacement. So we should have that money available, but we're at $1.2 million total for that project if we realize that contingency. Chip seal was $244,000, $45,000 for engineering, and $24,000 for contingencies. So that contingency, once again, probably shouldn't be touched. And then we did authorize additional chip sealing of $190,000, $35,000 for engineering, and $19,000 for contingency. And the contingency is a straight 10%. So that's where that figure is coming from. So another $244,000 for chip sealing work. Park Lane, $993,000, $183,000 in engineering, and $99,000 in contingency for $1.2 million. So what we've got is $6 million in total, which includes all that contingency. We've got $1 million in reserve for ferry, bringing our total to $7 million in revised expense. And there should be about $490,000 of remaining funds from that initial bond and that initial tax collection that would be available for next year. If you recall, the tax revenue less the bond payments left us with a balance annually for road work, and I want to say that number was right around $350,000 per year. But if you recall, our interest rates came in probably better than what we thought they were going to be. So that number, we've got to get a revised number on that. But so for next year, if you look at 490,000, which doesn't include that contingency, which could be upwards of close to $500,000, plus the 350,000 that we would have, we're probably going to have in the realm of 1.1 to 1.3 million dollars next year in work, and that doesn't include Ferry Road. Ferry Road, that money doesn't take into consideration that $1 million that's sitting out there, and we won't know what Ferry Road will come in at, but $1 million is a pretty conservative estimate when it comes to a mill and fill. Like Bellevue, I want to say was like $400,000, $450,000, maybe a little bit less than that. So I would be very surprised if we realized $1 million on Ferry Road. So we could be sitting in a pretty good position to do a substantial amount of work next year, depending upon Ferry, depending upon project closeouts, depending upon contingency. We're in the 1.1 to 1.5 probably with Ferry Road. So keep that in mind as we talk about figures. Good piece of news when I originally put this presentation together. It was actually going to be presented the night before the millage for the drainage millage question. That was on the ballot, I think, on the 9th or the 8th of August. That did pass, and I'm very proud to say, and I take no credit for this whatsoever. It has to do with the commission and I think that the work that the department does, the staff does, and the projects we do. But that millage request renewal passed at a better pace and a better differential than any of the millages that were on the ballot for that evening. So I think we were right around 80% yes to something like 20 or 19% no, something like that, which was once again a better differential than any of those questions. So what that tells me is that the residents recognize that there's a benefit to that millage, and they recognize that probably through the work that has been done. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of address how those dollars have been spent probably over the past 12 to 18 months through the different projects that we worked on. So had a variety of different projects. Island Woods we worked in there, Meridian Woods we worked in there, Manchester Ferry, and then the roadside ditching and the West River Road work that we did. So let's just want to take a minute to just kind of touch on that real briefly. Island. When I came on board probably 3-4 years ago, it was brought to my attention that there was a lot of drainage issues on Island Drive. There was an existing drainage path that hadn't been maintained back in a long time, 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years maybe even. To
That
the
Island Drive or Boulevard?
Island Boulevard, yes. So this property, it's primarily open space. It is open space to the south of Island Boulevard. There was a tremendous amount of drainage that was being directed out onto Island Boulevard and overwhelming the storm system out there. And flooding yards and flooding homes. So utilizing the township's contractor, Detroit Great All, the existing ditch line was recut back there to redirect or re-emphasize the direction of that drainage back towards the Thoroughfare Canal. And that drainage work that we did, we had 4 inches plus rain, I think probably 2-3 weeks ago. We didn't have an ounce of drainage issues, no flooding on Island Boulevard. That corrected that problem and was a tremendous success. So that's one project that we worked on and has proven to be effective in eliminating a problem that we had. Meridian Woods, and I think these pictures probably speak 1,000 words with regards to the issue that was going on in, off Meridian. So this stretch of Meridian is just south of Groseal Parkway before Manchester on the east side of the road. So the water would come out of the woods here, flood all these yards here on Meridian, and then traverse over to the west side of Meridian and then down towards Hawthorne. So it made a long winding route towards Hawthorne and then eventually to Frenchman's Creek. And all that water from that woods was draining into a single catch basin, going under the road and traveling through. It wasn't adequate. It wasn't significant enough of a pipe size or a conveyance to carry this much water. So once again, there was an existing drainage ditch back in the woods that hadn't been maintained probably in 50, 60 years, where we went back and recut that. And once again, 4 or 5 inches of rain that we had 2 or 3 weeks ago, those yards were completely dry. This entire project was $16,000. We took care of problems for probably about 6 or 7 houses in that area. And just for reference, we have a drainage grant program, and we authorize up to $5,000 per resident so long as they spend $5,000 of their own money to correct a drainage problem on their property. So the reason I mention that is we were able to solve a problem for probably 6 or 7 homes at the cost of $16,000 versus what probably would have cost us close to $30,000 under the drainage grant program, plus another $30,000 for the residents. So that to me is a success, and none of these issues exist any longer. So that was a really good project. Manchester to Rucker. Had a significant amount of drainage issues on Manchester, a lot of road flooding, 3-4 inches of road or of water standing on the road after a significant water event. Once again, there was an existing drainage ditch that runs north and south, and we recut that. It comes out, this is looking from, I believe, Rucker. The water flows out of the woods from Manchester to Rucker, then it goes underground, and then it empties out into the Smitty's Cut. And we re-emphasized this ditch line, cleared it. There was a lot of deadfalls in there, recut the ditch, and as a result, that water could flow much easier out of Manchester, the Manchester area, and no longer do we have flooding issues on that road area as a result of this work. Ferry Road drainage. So we did a fair amount of work recutting an existing ditch line on the north side of Ferry. So as you can see, the water is flowing very well now where it didn't used to. This is just an example of the ditch line that was reemphasized back in those woods to carry that water through, and that took care of a lot of drainage issues in the rear yards of a lot of the Ferry Road homes that are on the north side of the road. So that was another project. And then one of the bigger ones that involved a lot of heavy infrastructure work that was just beyond ditching work was the work that we did on West River Road, and this was all near Byramar. So there were the 2 locations. This pipe was almost completely collapsed and was drastically undersized, and the contractor excavated West River Road, installed this new pipe and these head walls on both sides of the road, and now that conveyance was restored and that water could flow through, which has implications not just at this location but a lot of the upstream locations that feed to this area. And then same issue, but this one's farther down, farther to the north on Island Estates. This is looking on the east side of the road. This structure and this conveyance was almost completely collapsed. Water couldn't be carried east to west, going to underneath West River Road and over to the river. And this work was completed at the cost of about $350,000 for, I believe, for both locations, and that was like last fall. So that's drainage. Just wanted to touch on that briefly to let the residents know kind of where that money's going. Our role and our goal is to identify problems and provide complete solutions to those drainage issues. And we want to try to make sure that the money that we're spending impacts multiple properties, and I think we've done that with a lot of the different projects that we've done. We're all familiar with the wastewater treatment plant. Working on the ACO work, the administrative consent order work, which is the addition of the new final clarifier. We've worked on primary clarifiers. We're currently working on primary clarifiers, sludge pumps, and then we've done some beautification work over there. So just want to touch on that real briefly. So if you haven't had the opportunity, and I don't know if Ryan will allow you to do it, but if you get a chance and he's not opposed to it, taking a look at the excavation to the north of the wastewater treatment plant, it's a pretty amazing thing to see. I mean, it seems like those guys are building either the biggest swimming pool or trying to dig down to China, but I mean, the hole is immense, and there's a lot that's going into the build of the new clarifier. Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's impressive, all the work.
It's a big hole. They've been digging on it for a while, but below that hole in the center here, there's piping that goes over to the wastewater treatment plant, and that's all been installed, so they're making steady progress with regards to that project. Primary clarifier rebuilds, if you recall, we did, I think, 1 or 2 in the previous year. This is the 3rd one. So this is actually the inside of the tank, and it actually looks pretty spick and span for what it's used for. But you can see the auger in the bottom that moves things, moves the sludge, moves the material. And then, I don't know if you can see, now let me see. Here, but there's conveyors and chains and flights that move all the material around like a big conveyor at a grocery store, but a much deeper conveyor that moves all that material around. So I think Bill had mentioned earlier that the structure is still drained down.
Yeah, it looks like that still.
Yep, and if you wanted an opportunity to climb down in there and say you've been at the bottom of a sludge clarifier, then it might be your only opportunity to do that. But it's a pretty impressive project. So, and with the completion of that one, we'll have all 3 of them rebuilt within the past 18 months or so. Sludge pumps. So we did replace 4 sludge pumps over at the wastewater treatment plant recently. We do still have some punch list items that we have to get taken care of. We got some priming issues on those, but those have been an issue for a couple of years, and we wanted to get those replaced. So those have been completed within the past 4 months, 5 months, something like that. And then also we've done some landscaping at the wastewater treatment plant to kind of spruce it up a little bit. We had a new sprinkler system installed that draws off the canal, and then also some planting, some general cleanup, and some mulching, some bed creation. So it looks a little bit better, I think, than what it used to be for sure. So we do have some wastewater treatment plant HVAC work that has to be completed. We do have a vendor under contract. They've submitted, I believe, their bonds and their contracts, so we're off and running with regards to that work. But a lot of the stuff has a pretty significant lead time, so that project won't start in earnest until spring of 2024. Getting towards the end here, so I know it's been a long presentation. We do have a lot of engineering work that we have ongoing. So we do have our asset management plan for our water system, which was authorized a couple of months ago. Below here, and it's kind of hard to read, is the overall schedule for the work being done and the timeline for which it's being done. But that project is anticipated to complete about a year from now in October of 2024. So just for the residents' benefit, we've done an asset management plan for our water or for our sewer system, which included televising and cleaning the entire sanitary sewer system from the north end of the island all the way to the south end of the island, and incorporating the condition assessments that are part of the televising and cleaning into an asset management plan, which lays out a capital improvement schedule for the next 25 to 30 years. The intent underneath the water asset management plan is to have a similar document which gives all of us a plan for the replacement of our water mains in a scheduled fashion, so that we can prioritize from worst to first, the water mains we want to replace. Part of that also is a water reliability study, which is actually before you this evening. I think it's one of our only action items. That's an integral part of the asset management plan, and also is required by the state to be completed every 5 years. The difference between the reliability study and the asset management plan is the reliability study really looks more at flows and capacities, and less on maybe necessarily condition, but flows and capacities are a reflection on condition. So between the asset management plan and the reliability study, they'll kind of fit together in like tooth and gear with regards to asset management of our water system. So we're not just sitting around doing capital work. We're guided by documents that have been developed by professionals that provides for us a pathway a game plan on how we're doing our capital improvements. So I wanted to mention those as well. Yeah, we talked about that. I think one of the last ones I have here is refuse. So we are currently under contract with Priority, and this is incorrect. We've already accepted the second option last year, bringing our contract to November of 2024. So about a year from now, our contract will be up. Our rates under that contract increased about 1.8% annually. So when we take a look at inflation, that contract actually aged really, really well for us. I don't think anybody anticipated, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% inflation. So, we can't claim to be, the smartest guys in the room and gals in the room with regards to how that contract was crafted, but it just did age good for us. There have been some service concerns, and I think that they've probably occurred more recently in the past year or two. But if I were to guess, a lot of those service concerns are attributable to staffing. As you know, the world is understaffed. Everywhere you go, it's hard to find help. And I don't know that being a refuse collector on the back of a trash truck, dealing with the adverse conditions that they do, it's not a real exciting job. I'm sure they have their hard times filling those positions. So when you have a hard time filling positions and you have a hard time, I think, retaining staff because of the field that they're in and the way that the economy is right now, you get a lot of turnover. If you have all this turnover, you have guys forgetting routes or not familiar with the routes, and you have missed stops. And I think in talking with my counterparts in other communities that have other vendors, it's kind of a similar theme, okay, with regards to all the trash collection providers right now. So the equipment is really good. We don't have any issues with broken down equipment or leaking hydraulic lines. We continually try to work with them with regards to the issues that we do have. If it's missed stops or misplaced trash cans, or we have a lot of complaints about recyclables ending up in the trash can or in the trash truck rather than the recycle truck. So we're always working with them with regards to trying to figure those solutions out to those problems. But as a commission and as a community, we're going to have a decision to make with regards to the bidding of our contract as we're out of options effective November 2024. And I would be surprised if the current provider would be willing to extend the contract at a 1.8% inflationary component. So I think if that was possible, that we would have to seriously consider that, but I would doubt that would be a possibility. So we're probably looking at a rebid or a bidding of the refuse contract for next year. So, and that is a process. So the fact that we know that it's November 2024, you really do need probably a good 6 to 8 months to do that correctly. So we're positioned well with starting to talk about it now. So, yes.
That it? Water supply.
Not yet.
One more. And just from the water supply side, we've talked about the asset inventory. Lead service lines continue to be a challenge that we have to address, and John works diligently on that and is staying on schedule. We talked a little bit about the Elba Island Bridge line replacement, and then we do currently have an issue with the Meridian Bridge line damage. So we're currently, in litigation with regards to that damage that was caused to our main by the bridge project that's going on out there.
That's the path they took, is to go with litigation.
Correct. Yep. So we weren't able to obtain any assistance from them voluntarily. So, okay. So, and that concludes the presentation. My apologies for the lengthiness of it.
It was very good.
I think it's important, and Derek, you did a great job pulling this
Thank you.
together.
Very good.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek.
I want to comment on the refuse. This is something we're going to address. The last time, if you may recall, 5 or 6 years ago, we had waste management.
Right.
And we got 4 bids. And when waste management bid, they essentially doubled their price. Went from $600,000 to 1.2 or 3 million. And of course, they didn't want the work. And we took a gamble on Priority Waste because they were the low bidder. They were brand new. At the time, all they had for residential collection was Hamtramck and the little city of New Baltimore. Now they have Flint, I don't know, all the communities, Westland, so their residential collection's really mushroomed. I know Derek and John spent a lot of time with follow-up on complaints, and it's done some good. I think that from my driving around a little bit, the recycling bins look more like they're just supposed to be recycling materials in them, and the trash cans aren't just left in the middle of the road or on the edge of pavement anymore, especially in the neighborhoods. They're put back. I think we've done some good there. But manpower and staffing is an issue. So I'm glad you brought up refuse because that's something we're going to have to deal with. And it's not the best topic to have to deal with, but that's going to be on our horizon next year. So this was a great report, Derek, and I want to thank you very much. Good summary. Hope you all, do any of you have a comment on it?
So I just told me everything that's been done, is gonna be done, has been done. And it's all because the residents ponied up money to get this done.
I just think you did a fabulous job on the handouts, and they're easy for us to explain to other people, so it's great.
Ray?
No comment.
Lenny?
No, it's, the projects, the conversations with you and Rhodes goes back several years.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's actually nice to see it come to fruition, and great presentation, Derek, thank you.
Les?
What?
You have any comment on the presentation?
All right, very good. I was going to say, Derek, did anybody talk to you today at all?
Talk to me about.
Oh, I mean, you've been going all day.
Oh yeah. I gotta get some cough drops or something, or a drink of water. Talk a lot. My apologies.
Well, okay, thank you for that report. No public comment here. I don't see anybody wants to speak. Next item would be Ryan Welch. Ryan?
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
How you doing, Ryan?
All right, good. As was already spoken about, the ACO work is moving along. Some of the rain that we've had has kind of slowed them a little bit, but nothing much. You just have to wait until it dries. But it's moving along as he spoke about, and I'm happy with it. So, yeah. As he had in his presentation, primary tank number 1 is up for final inspection next week. So the supplier has to come in and they inspect the equipment, making sure that it meets all the specifications, like all the measurements and everything. So when that passes, I would say by month's end, we'll have that back in service. And then we can use it again. So that's good. We did have an SSO, as you all know. We had a historical rainfall about 3 weeks ago on 8/24. We got 4.1 inches of rain in about 8 hours, and that's a lot of rain. I don't think we've ever had something like that. But we were operational at the plant, so we didn't have any maintenance issues or nothing. So the SSO was about 8.5 million. So that. The MCAP overage, as it's an annual amount on maintenance spending at the plant. And the way that works is that the first 40,000 is actually paid through our monthly fee with the township, and anything which is over that is billed back with no markup or anything. So the amount was 133,190, and that was through April 1, 2022 through March 31 of this year. And that's consistent with years past that we've been over a nice amount, about 80, 90 grand a year. And that, so if anybody needs more specifics on those amounts, you can let me know. But I go through every month and I look at all the receipts and invoices. I add everything up, and make sure it all matches up with what Veolia has. So if there's any issues with that, I can, I guess add more information on each of those, because I know sometimes these spreadsheets are a little confusing, like with minuses, and some things are taken out in months, and then it's so it's just a little hard to understand sometimes. But so the influent flow meter at the plant is being replaced. It's faulty. This actually happened around February. It wasn't working right, and that's a magnetic flow meter, so it's in line. And it's probably 20 plus years old. So that obviously it reads all the flow into the plant. And some good news on that is that we do have an option with a meter. It's a clamp-on meter that can go around the pipe, and Eagle actually accepted that. That's sufficient. So that's probably 1/3 of the cost. So I think that's where we're going to go on that one. And C. Raines has advised on that too, that's the way to go. So that's actually ordered, so it's on order. But yeah. That's all I got.
Well, I've been over there, and I got to give you guys credit. You're working in a heck of a construction zone right now. But a year from
Yep.
now, or hopefully a year from now, it'll all be over with, and you'll have almost a brand new operation there at the plant. So it's important work that's being done there.
It is, yeah. I'm happy with it.
Anything else?
No, I just, Ryan and I had talked before the meeting a little bit about the the overage, the maintenance cap overage, and I understand, as Ryan had mentioned, the spreadsheets are really difficult to read and understand what you're looking at. I mean, there are a couple of pages that have some pretty good detail, and there's others that it's like there's not much there at all. So I had discussed with him that if the commission wants to wait to address that in October, until we have more detail and more information about those charges, that might be the direction that the commission might want to go. And I think Ryan said that shouldn't be a problem if you guys want to go that route with it. But it's all about what your comfort level is. Obviously, if you're not sure of what exactly those charges are for, we'll get that additional information from Ryan in an explanation, because there's like personnel charges on there and stuff like that. If that's overtime, that there's probably that it comes up quite a bit. It should be a pretty easy explanation that he could provide.
Probably categorize them is really what you're really going to be doing, right? Just all the different categories. Yeah.
Well, so one thing that you all don't see, I think Derek gets a copy and I get a copy and Dave as treasurer gets a copy, is once a month, Ryan produces an operating report. And in the operating report, it lists the major purchase you've made from vendors. Could be Home Depot, or it could be eBay, or several Kennedy Industries or Granger.
That's
where
all
you've got to
MCAP.
get parts and
Yeah,
supplies,
so that's all every month.
and that's part of that
That is a
overage.
part of that overage. And then, sometimes expenses in the monthly operating report does not line up exactly with Veolia's accounting because, some things might be late one month, so it's on,
Right.
but it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
you know.
So this is a great. The monthly report is a excuse me,
Yep.
a great explanation of what kind of things you're buying, whether it's pressure gauges or skim rakes for the
Yep. They could be anything.
or bleach pumps.
Contractors,
Yeah.
anything. Yep.
Contractors coming in, right?
Yep. So.
Electricians.
Yep.
So at least this is very clear what it is. And there's probably, I'm guessing, as Derek mentioned, overtime. So my feeling is I think I'd like to see you take try to list some of this stuff, maybe just copy these out of the 12 months so we all have an idea what kinds of things there are. I don't want to make work for you, but again, the codes were very
Reduce that.
difficult to read. So
Yeah,
if
I
you could
know,
redo
yeah.
it, I think we should delay this until we get the
Next
proper
month. Okay.
materials. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
So, is that, you in agreement, Derek?
I'm fine. As long as that doesn't put a hardship on Ryan as far as, because I know Veolia bills this and they, they're out that money because they paid for it up front until we reimburse them. You don't think that there'll be any issues with them with
No.
regard? Okay. Then
They're
that
not
should be
concerned. And
fine.
I have all this information. It's just that it's all on like spreadsheets. I can make it, real easy to understand every month, all listed out, and then I'll let you guys have that.
That would be my preference.
All right.
So, thank you very much for your report. Any
That's all I
other questions of Ryan?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So, element fleet management and lease plan, both vehicle and like high-low leasing companies, but the charges are like $12. So it's like a very small charge, almost like it's a gas card or something like that. Is that feasible for like vehicles or equipment you guys are leasing
Well,
as Viola?
Veolia, we have a truck that is paid off, and but we do use its Element
Element.
Fleet Services, who pays it's like a maintenance fee
Got a
for the
maintenance
truck,
fee.
and then
Okay.
but
Sometimes you get fuel cards through them.
Yup, to fill up the truck, but those expenses are paid by Veolia.
By corporate.
So in our monthly fee, whatever it is, 40 grand, I mean, that's paid out of that.
Okay.
So that's not maintenance cap or
Yeah, I
anything
was
under the
just like,
maintenance cap.
I used to work for one of those guys, so I'm
Yeah.
familiar with what they do, and I've never seen an invoice from them for $12.
That's all that is. It's like a fee,
Okay.
and it's weird, but that's who they have for the fleet service.
And it's probably just dispersed
Trucks.
amongst all the company assets. It's just spread around.
Yeah, it's just like a fee
Right.
for every
Fair
month.
enough.
That's what that is. Yep.
Yeah, that answers that.
Have another question?
That was it.
Okay. If there are no other questions, Ryan, thank you for the report.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
Ryan.
you, sir.
So we'll go to action item A. Should I read the action item? Action item A, the Grosse Ile, the resolution proposed is the Grosse Ile Department of Public Services Commission hereby recommends to the Grosse Ile Township Board the award of a contract to Fishbeck Engineering at a cost of $37,400 to perform the township's required water system reliability study and general plan update for the water system. I'll make a motion to approve. This is a budgeted item. We budgeted the money for it. I make a motion to approve the water reliability study and the award to Fishbeck Engineering.
I will second your motion.
All had a chance to look at the information. Are there any questions? As Derek said earlier, this is required every 5 years, and that's what the report indicates. If there are no other questions, I'll call the motion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Derek, it's up to you for manager's report.
Do we want to table the maintenance cap overage? Because we didn't eliminate it from the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'll move that we table and bring it back at our October meeting, the maintenance cap overage payment with the revised information for backup.
Second?
Any discussion on the motion to table that item? So the authorization for the maintenance cap overage payment would be delayed till our October meeting. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's been approved to be tabled. Now we're to the manager's report.
Yeah, I'll try to get through this kind of quickly because we covered some of the, especially the project status report information under the presentation. But on the lost water report, we're starting now on that recovery, part of our annual water loss, spreadsheet. So you'll see we actually, for the month of July, billed 40,000 gallons and we only purchased 33 million gallons and we sold 40 million gallons. So we're starting back with that seasonal. So we should start recovering some of that overall water loss percentage. Any questions about any of that? We did have some delays in some of our billing as well, which is highlighted a bit of that difference, especially like in the month of June. You would have seen a different number. That's partially why we had such a high percentage actually in May and June, because we weren't doing some billings that we normally would have done during those months due to some staffing issues where we didn't have the staff in place that would normally do the water billings. So some of that got pushed out farther into the summertime. So you'll actually see more accelerated and higher numbers, I think, for your months of July and August because those bills, although the consumption was billed out, it was just billed out at a different time period. So any questions about any of that? And then when you take a look at our revenue numbers too, you'll see that too. So not only was it gallons billed, but it was also revenue billed or revenue collected that will come in later than what it normally would have in our budget. So it's worth mentioning. On our project status report, went over a lot of this stuff underneath the presentation, but we are moving forward in a lot of different areas, and Ohio has provided a variety of different updates, but most of them I already kind of went over in the presentation. Are there any specific questions about the project status report that I can address for you that might have not already been answered?
Are there any?
No.
If there aren't any, that concludes my report for this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, item number 14 is a discussion item for 2024 road projects. And I'm going to jump in on that. Dave? if I can Pass these out to you. Derek, you have a copy of this?
I don't, no. You want me to put one on the overhead as well? Would that be helpful?
I do, and I was gonna come out there. There's 3 of them there. Okay.
Sure.
Point to it. Okay, a couple of, so this is my work accumulating, talking to Derek and John over the summertime and driving the various roads. So the message here is this. This is just a first glance at it. And I've gotten some input from Derek. What I wanted to say to you is, you all, in the past, we used to get in the car and drive the roads as a commission. It's always a little cumbersome, but we had an idea where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do and develop a road program. And that was when we were developing road programs for millage proposals, what should be the priorities and so forth. So we're beyond that. And I know we don't have a limited amount of money, and I appreciate Derek's work for next year, what we're going to do. So I thought I'd just, over the last couple of weeks, I drove around and I thought, well, where could we do chip seal? Where would we have some maintenance? And this is not perfect at all. So I just wanted to point out a few things to you. So let's see, as we go, I'm going to start at the north end of the island. One road that I thought, and I know we did crack sealing this year, is the extension of Meridian all the way up to Park Lane at the very north end of the island. So that's a candidate for chip seal. I'm not sure it's the top priority. I think that the township manager and John and our engineers have got to evaluate that. But it's a proposed project for that. You'll see little hash marks along bridge. That's because we hope to do that this year. And that hopefully the contractor will be back to do the chip sealing. Bridge is one of the projects. Another project that could use chip sealing, this chip sealing is to save the pavement that's there. It's the section of Park Lane from Horse Mill to the bridge that's out. Okay, so from Horse Mill by the Presbyterian Church to the bridge that's out. That a lot of cracks in that pavement. I mean, it's not ruined by any means, but chip sealing would be good when we have the money. So another project would be, as we drive down East River Road, both Stout and Island Drive. And looks like I've got half of one of the streets, and then Stout and Island. They could use chip sealing too. They're asphalt roads. They could use chip sealing too. Of course, we talked about Ferry Road in the blue, and that's already in our plan. And then I threw in East River Road, that section in front of the junior high, but Derek tells me he's trying to get the county to agree to do that. As I drove around Bellevue, between Meridian and West River, certainly is a candidate for chip sealing. There's one small area there that looks like we need some asphalt repairs in it. So that's a candidate. And then next to Hickory, across from the service station on Meridian, Hickory, the roads on Hickory Island are pretty good. There's one section about 200 feet, 200 to 300 feet, and it looks like it was paved at a different time, but it's really bad shape. And that needs to be asphalt resurfaced, that one little section. And I think when we do Meridian Road on Hickory, both approaches, the north and the south approach, that probably would be taken care of and addressed at that point. Also, for chip sealing, a candidate would be Alta Loma. And then paving or chip sealing, another candidate would be, what's the name of that street? Albemarle, in the very south end of the island. I didn't know that, and we hope this year that we'll have East River Road chip sealed before winter comes. And if it isn't, then that would be a candidate for chip sealing next year. Then last is Elba Island. And I've been under the assumption that Elba Bridge would be done in 2025. It's been moved up now. So the section between East River and the bridge is in bad shape for resurfacing. And I don't know, the question would be, what do we do to go south on Elba after the bridge? We did some improvements at the intersection, the other side of, which would be the east side of the bridge, a year or two ago? Yeah, it's almost like an intersection improvement we did. We paved it. It needed it. Elba someday would be a candidate for some chip sealing as well, some base repairs and chip seal. So all I did is play with this. It was kind of fun to look at this and put something on a map. But these are the kinds of things that if you have any idea of a project you'd like to see, be prepared to bring it back at the next meeting. I think we're going to ask Derek and John to do, maybe with our engineers, is look at these and come back with a program. I think that before Thanksgiving, before our November meeting is over with, we ought to have a plan in place that complies with the budget, at least a target, so we can go out and get bids in for whether it's chip sealing or some repaving like Ferry Road, whatever else is going to be done with it. And it goes concrete work as well, which I know is important. The point is, the sooner we do the bidding, and the best time is midwinter, the better prices we're going to get. Anybody have any comments about this? So if you have a road idea that you'd like to suggest, please feel free to contact Derek directly and give it to him, all right? Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, moving right along. Next item is Chairman's report. The only thing I'd like to comment on is I think that this report really highlights, Derek, what the work of this commission, but also the work of staff. And Dave, I wonder what you think. Wouldn't this be something that Derek should deliver to the trustees? And I don't mean give a report at the meeting necessarily, but provide them all with a copy of this?
Copy of it, sure. Yeah. That's easy enough to do. We might also want to give it to Mr. Friel and somehow put a link on our webpage.
Yeah.
And what I might try to do too is, if we can segment the portion of this meeting in which the presentation was given, I think the narrative that goes along with
Sure.
the presentation is equally as important, because there's a lot of detail that just the presentation wouldn't
Yep.
provide. So
Good
I'll
idea.
try to work with Brian and see if we can't figure something out to make sure that it's available to the public in a more condensed, version if they want to watch it.
So I guess I'd ask Derek, if at the appropriate time, sometime you put it in the packets that you deliver to the trustees, maybe with a statement from us that we hope that they would take a look at it, and we thank them for their support for the road millage and all the drainage projects and our budgets and everything else we do. Okay? Okay, that's the only comment I have. Now we'll go around the table. Linda?
First night back, and I'm just taking it all in.
I'm good.
David? You're good? Ray?
I'm good.
Len?
No additional comments, thank you.
Les?
I would like to thank Jim Budney for the $20 million. And it seems like there was a lot of smoke blowing from this end of the table last night. So I thought I'd put my 2 cents worth in and put a little smoke up there too. Otherwise than that, everything is wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Les, for your comments. Been a good meeting, good presentation, a lot of positive stuff. Derek, thanks a lot. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Your support?
Support.
Moved and supported that this meeting be adjourned. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.